Good morning. Today we're going to be reading through Chapter 3 of A Study in Scarlet. It's a Sherlock Holmes story, so it's by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And we're not just going to be reading the words because we're doing this live. And if you are studying English, learning English, and you're an advanced learner, this is a wonderful way to learn vocabulary. So as we read, I want you to ask questions. What does this mean? What does that mean? Explain this. Explain that. And I'll be happy to answer your questions as we go. And when we're finished with the chapter, don't go away, because we're going to bring some people in, hopefully, from YouTube or other platforms, and we are going to practice using those words. But we're not just going to practice them. We're going to work on intonation, accentuation, things you don't normally practice in ESL videos. And so if you're very advanced and you want to improve your accent, this is the way to do it. And we've got Pachu here. Good morning, Pachu. As usual, the first two people who volunteer once the video starts, so now, will be the two people who will practice at the end. So we'll practice for about an hour after we finish Chapter 3. And Alex is here. Good morning, Alex. How are you doing? All right. Well, I guess we better get started with Chapter 3. And I don't know. I posted a vocabulary list on Discord, and I also posted that in the YouTube community posts. Thought that might be bad. I think we're going to start doing that. I'll post that if I have a chance, so you can look at it in advance and maybe not feel so lost. Well, anyway, let's get started. Let's get started with Chapter 3 of A Study in Scarlet. This is the Lauriston Garden Mystery. I confess that I was considerably startled by this fresh proof of the practical nature of my companion's theories. Wow, that's quite a beginning sentence. Let's re-say that. I was very surprised at this new evidence of the practical nature. Oh, so in the previous chapter, where they first introduced Sherlock Holmes, he's a very strange person, and he's doing all kinds of crazy things. He's hitting dead bodies with sticks. He's studying blood under a microscope. He's doing all kinds of weird things for people in the 1870s. and people think he's crazy. And now here Watson is saying, I was surprised by how practical that turned out to be. That's a phrasal verb, turned out. What a surprise. This is what happened. But what was the practical thing? I don't remember that. Let's look at the conversation from the previous chapter for a minute. What did he do? The thought hardly passed through my... Oh. When Watson and... when Watson and Sherlock Holmes first met, Sherlock Holmes said, "Oh, you were fighting in Afghanistan, or you've been in Afghanistan in the military." And Watson said, "How did you know that?" And then suddenly Sherlock Holmes explained, "Oh, it's because of the color of your skin right now. It's tan. You were somewhere tropical. You're a doctor in the military." I forgot what else he said. But the point was that just by looking at Watson and his physical characteristics, he was able to tell a lot about his past history. And it's because he studies how water splashes onto your coat, or the tone of your skin, or something like that, or the language that you use. Pachi says, even though he did not medical, but how did he knew about it? What about what, Pachi? What are you asking about? Okay, so that's a translation of the first sentence. Hopefully they're not all like that in this paragraph, in this chapter. I confess that I was considerably startled. I was very surprised by this fresh proof of the practical nature of my companion's theory. So he has all these weird ideas, but actually, Watson is surprised that they work. His strange little things that he studies tell a story. My respect for his powers of analysis increased wondrously. So wonder, wonderful, amazing, right? If you say something is wonderful, that's amazing. So if your respect increases wondrously, your respect for him increases amazingly. There still remained some lurking suspicion. Lurking in this sentence sort of means hidden, like a secret suspicion. A little hidden suspicion in my mind. However, the whole thing was a prearranged episode intended to dazzle me. However, there was still something that remained lurking, a suspicion in my mind, however, that the whole thing was a prearranged episode intended to dazzle me. To dazzle someone is to surprise someone. So Watson's thinking, Sherlock Holmes and my friend who introduced me to him, they were just lying. They're just trying to trick me into thinking he's amazing. This is a joke. Though what earthly object he could have in taking me in was past my comprehension. When I looked at him, he had finished reading the note, and his eyes had assumed a vacant, lackluster expression, which showed mental abstraction. So when they finished talking, and they talked about that, I think, in Chapter 2, vacant means empty. So if you have an empty stare, staring is when you're looking, it means you can't see anything happening in the eyes like this. Am I happy? Am I sad? What am I thinking? This is a vacant stare. So when they finished the conversation, Sherlock Holmes just sat like this. That's kind of weird. When I looked at him, he had finished reading the note, and he was reading a note. Wait, let's get back to... Yeah, we're here. Okay. So he had received a note. How in the world did you deduce that? I asked. I had some vocabulary words already arranged, but now I'm seeing all these other vocabulary words that I want to use, like lackluster. That's a good one. And there was another one here too. I'm going to change this. I was trying to plan this out in advance so that it wouldn't take a lot of time to put the exercises together at the last minute. In our transition from finishing the chapter to going to our exercises. But these are good words. What was that other word? Dazzle. Let's put dazzle too. Razzle dazzle. All right. How on the earth did you deduce that? I asked. Deduce what? He said petulantly. To be petulant. Oh, we better define that word. To be petulant means like angry. But I just want to make sure about that. Let's see. Acting like a child. That's usually a phrase, petulant child. That's a child who is very childish. They don't share. They're angry. They're selfish. They're rude. Let's see, behaving in a childish, sulky, impatient, or bad-tempered way, especially when you don't get what you want. Maybe we'll add petulant since we're making a new list. Now, I know we haven't done these words. Lackluster, dazzle, and petulant. I'm going to find one more. I've lost my place. I don't like this two-column setup. It's a little bit harder to read. Deduce what? He said petulantly. Why? That he was a retired sergeant of the Marines. I have no time for trifles. Trifles are little things. I have no time for little things, he answered brusquely. Brusquely means like maybe impatiently. And then with a smile, excuse my rudeness. You broke the thread of my thoughts, but perhaps it is as well. So you actually were not able to see that the man was a sergeant of the Marines? No, indeed. It was better to know it to explain why I knew it. If you were asked to prove that two of the two made four... It's a weird sentence. Okay, if you were asked to prove that 2 and 2 made 4, you might find some difficulty, and yet you're quite sure of the fact. So, Sherlock Holmes is saying, if I ask you what 2 plus 2 is, and you say 4, how can you prove it? You know it's 4, but how do you prove it? And yet you're quite sure of the fact. Even across the street, I could see a great blue anchor tattooed on the back of the fellow's hand. Oh, okay, now I remember. The last chapter ends with Watson looking out the window, and he sees a man walking down the street. And that man is looking for the address, an address on a building. And Watson says, "Oh, I wonder what he's looking for." And Sherlock looks out the window, and Sherlock says, "Oh, that's a military man. He's from whatever. I don't remember what." And then it turns out the man was looking for them. He was a messenger, and he had a message for Sherlock Holmes. So chapter 3 opens with Sherlock Holmes reading a letter, a message from that man. But when the man came in, Watson wanted to prove that Sherlock Holmes doesn't know what he's talking about. So he said, I forget what he asked, but the man said, "Yes, I am in the military." And it was really funny because he was humiliated. I see a great blue anchor tattooed on the back of the fellow's hand. That smacked of the sea. Smacks of. That's a good one. And I bet you don't know it. Let's see. When something smacks of something else... I would say it's like 100%, or it's a description of something. It's totally or completely. So, if somebody has an anchor on the back of their hand, let me show you a picture of an anchor. In case you don't know what that is. It's not a terribly advanced word, but most people don't really need it for anything, as far as I know. This is an anchor. That keeps a ship from moving. He had a military... Oh, let's say that again. So, even across the street, I could see a great blue anchor tattooed on the back of the fellow's hand. That smacked of the sea. That means that has everything to do with being a sailor. I'm making that a practice word, so we'll practice it in a little bit. He had a military carriage, however, and a regulation side whiskers. So he's saying the way he walked. When you have carriage, when he says he has a military carriage, that means the way he walks. It's like a military man. And also regulation side whiskers. So the way his hair, these are whiskers. This is your hair. But for men don't have hair on their face. They have whiskers. So side whiskers, we call these sideburns, this part. If you grow your hair down to this way, your whiskers down here, these are sideburns. But so he's calling them side whiskers, and he's saying that's, I could see by the way his side whiskers were, that's the military style. There we have the Marine. He was a man with some amount of self-importance and a certain air of command. So the way he walked, he seemed like he thought he was very important, and he seemed very powerful. You must have observed the way in which he held his head and swung his cane. A steady, respectable, middle-aged man, too. On the face of him, all the facts which led me to believe he had been a sergeant. Wonderful, I ejaculated. Commonplace, said Holmes, though I thought from his expression that he was pleased at my evident surprise and admiration. So commonplace, that means it's nothing. But he was, he did enjoy the admiration. He did enjoy the praise. Pachu says, sergeant and sheriff are the same. No. Sergeant is a military position, so that's I'm not really too familiar with the hierarchy of the military, so I couldn't tell you where. Somewhere in the middle, I guess, sergeant. I could be wrong about that. And a sheriff, the way that the government is divided. If you look at like the local level, you have like the city government, and the city government has a police force. But there's a slightly larger region called a county. Some countries divide their cities or areas into counties, some don't. But if you were to think about it, the smallest thing would be a city, and then next would be a county in the U.S., and then all the counties are a state. So that's sort of the lowest is the city, and then the county, and then the state, and then the federal government. So it's like layers of government, and the sheriff is the head police officer for the county. So in the city, you would have like a chief of police, but then there's a collection of several cities in a county, and that would have a sheriff. Lots of different police forces. I said just now that there were no criminals. It appears that I'm wrong. Look at this. He threw me over the note which the commissionaire had brought. Why, I cried as I cast my eye over it, this is terrible. It does seem a little out of the common, he remarked calmly. Would you mind reading it aloud? This is a letter which I read to him. My dear Sherlock Holmes. So Sherlock Holmes sits in his apartment, and all of the police, all the detectives of London, when they can't solve a problem, they go to Sherlock Holmes. That's how he makes money. They pay for his services. But also sometimes private people will write to him and say, I need your help. Nobody can help me. So this is probably one of those letters of a just a regular person asking for his help. There has been a bad business during the night at 3 Lauriston Gardens off the Brixton Road. Our man on the beat. That means our police officer. So this is probably a police chief writing to Sherlock Holmes, because our man on the beat, I don't know if they still do this, but before police had cars, they had like a special route that they would walk. So, the police officer would, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., walk this way and that way. They had a special routine where they would walk constantly, and that's called a beat. So our man on the beat, that means our police officer who watches the streets. Our man on the beat saw a light there at about 2 in the morning. So in Lauriston Gardens, the police officer saw a light at 2 o'clock in the morning. And as the house was an empty one, so this Lauriston Gardens, at 3 Lauriston Gardens, so that's a house, it's an address. So he saw a light in a window or something. As the house was an empty one, suspected that something was amiss. If something is amiss, that means there's a problem. There's a little problem. He found the door open. And in the front room, which is bare of furniture, no furniture in the front room, which is bare of furniture, discovered the body of a gentleman, well dressed, and having cards in his pocket bearing the name of Enoch J. Drebber, Cleveland, Ohio, USA. There had been no robbery. Is there any evidence as to how the man met his death? There are marks. There are marks of blood. There are marks of blood in the room, but there's no wound upon his person. We are at a loss as to how he came into the empty house. Indeed, the whole affair is a puzzler. If you can come around to the house any time before 12, you will find me there. I have left everything in statu quo. Status quo is a Latin phrase which means to keep everything the same. Don't change anything. So he's using this Latin phrase which means you'll find everything untouched. Nothing has changed. We're not touching anything. Until I hear from you. So actually the detective is saying, I will not touch anything until you come. If you're unable to come, I shall give you fuller details and would esteem it great kindness if you would favor me with your opinion. So this is just Victorian English saying, please come. I'd really like it. I'd really appreciate it. I'd really appreciate it if you'd come. Yours faithfully, Tobias Gregson. So the police detective is writing to Sherlock Holmes and he's saying, this house is empty. It's vacant. Remember that? The vacant stare? Vacant means empty. The house is vacant. Nobody lives there. It's an empty house. And because the police officer, he was walking his beat, his route that he travels to check and make sure that everything is okay. And he noticed the light was on in an empty house. So when he went to look at the door, it was open. And when he opened the door, in the front room, the empty front room, there's a dead American man, very nicely dressed, but nobody knows how he got there. Gregson is the smartest of the Scotland Yarders. So that's the famous police station in London. My friend remarked, he and Lestrade are the pick of a bad lot. So Sherlock Holmes is saying that Lestrade and Gregson are the very best detectives that there are. But he's saying they're the best of the worst. All of the detectives are horrible, but these two are the best of them. They're both quick and energetic, but conventional, shockingly so. They have their knives into one another. They're as jealous as a pair of professional beauties. There will be some fun over this case if they're both put upon the scent. I was amazed at the calm way in which he rippled on. Surely there's not a moment to be lost, I cried. Shall I go and order you a cab? I'm not sure about whether I shall go. I'm the most incurably lazy devil that ever stood in shoe leather. That is, when the fit is on me. For I can be spry enough at times. All right, so now we practiced the word spit the other day. Fit the other day. And that means like a short explosion. An explosion of something. Emotion or anger. Yeah, well, it's an explosion of emotion, really. Or a period of time. You know, you can have a coughing fit or a laughing fit. Let's look at this sentence again. I'm not sure whether I shall go. I'm the most incurably lazy devil that ever stood in shoe leather. So he's saying, I'm very lazy. I'm not really sure I want to go. That is, when the fit is on me. For I can be spry enough at times. Spry means have a lot of energy. So he's saying, when I'm having a lazy fit, when the fit is on me, when I'm having a lazy fit, I will do nothing. But if I'm not having a lazy fit, I'm okay. I'll do anything. I'm very energetic. I'm spry. Why, it's just such a chance as you've been longing for. My dear fellow, what does it matter to me? Supposing I unravel the whole letter. So remember, unravel means undo. Supposing I undo the whole letter. You may be sure that Gregson, Lestrade and Company will pocket all the credit. That comes of being an official personage. So Sherlock Holmes is saying, no, undo, unravel means undo. We talked about that a little bit the other day. To unravel a mystery is to solve the mystery, to look at all the different pieces. See, it's funny that we use unravel, because usually unravel means the opposite, take something apart. But I think that's why we use it, because you take the mystery apart. You look at all the facts, you look at all of the story, and then you put it together again. And you make a story, you solve the mystery. So here, he's saying, if I unravel the mystery, if I unravel the letter, if I solve the mystery, the detectives will take the credit. I won't get any credit. They take it. That's how they are. They work for the government. But he begs you to help him. Yes, he knows that I am his superior and acknowledges it to me. But he would cut his tongue out before he would own it to any third person. So in secret, all the detectives admire Sherlock Holmes, but in public, they say bad things about him. However, we may as well go and have a look. I shall work it out on my own hook. I may have a laugh at them if I have nothing else. Come on. He hustled on his overcoat and bustled about in a way that showed that an energetic fit had superseded the apathetic tone. So hustling means moving fast, and also bustling means moving and bumping into things. So he hurried up and he put on his coat, and he was reaching around for things, getting things, bustling, a lot of activity to get ready to leave, in a way that showed that an energetic fit. So he was having an explosion of energy. He was having a period of time of a lot of energy, had superseded the apathetic tone. Apathy means not caring. So when he read the letter, it's not really that interesting. I'm too lazy. I'm not going. But suddenly, I think he was inspired to show Watson how much fun it is to go to one of these things and humiliate the detectives. So suddenly he's got energy. You know, that's a good idea. Let me get my coat. Where are my keys? All right. Get your hat, he said. You wish me to come? Yes. If you have nothing better to do. A minute later, we were both in a hansom, driving furiously off for the Brixton Road. It was a foggy, cloudy morning, and the dung-colored veil hung over the housetops. Like the reflection of mud-colored streets beneath. My companion was in the best of spirits and prattling away is, talking, blah, 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 blah. And prattled away about the Cremona fiddles and the difference between a Stradivarius and an Amati. Those are violins. So Sherlock Holmes plays the violin, and these are just different brands of violin. As for myself, I was silent, for the dull weather and the melancholy business upon which we were engaged depressed my spirits. You don't seem to give much thought to the matter in hand, I said at least, interrupting Holmes's musical disquisition. What's a disquisition? We better look that one up. I don't think it would be a useful term for you. I wouldn't recommend using it. Nobody will know what you're talking about, but let's define it. A disquisition is a long, formal, and detailed discussion or written explanation about a particular subject. So while they were riding to the murder scene, Sherlock Holmes was talking about different types of violins, and it was very uninteresting. He was prattling on about different types of violins. That was his disquisition. No data yet, he answered. It is a capital mistake to theorize before you have all the evidence. It biases the judgment. You will have your data soon, I remarked, pointing with my finger. This is Brixton Road, and that is the house. If I'm not very much mistaken. Patch is asking about melancholy. We've seen that word before. That means like depression or sadness. So it is. Stop, driver, stop. We were still 100 yards or so from it, but he insisted on our alighting, and we finished our journey upon foot. So I've learned since I've started reading all of these books from the 19th century that to alight means to leave, to exit the vehicle. I don't think that it's something that they use anymore. I've never heard anybody say that. Maybe it's just talking about getting off from a carriage. Number 3, Lauriston Gardens were in an ill-omened and minatory look. All right. You've probably seen ill meaning sick. Ill means like in a bad way. So, for example, if you say ill-gotten, to get something, sometimes it could mean to receive something. So ill-gotten means stolen or received in a bad way, received by lying. And this is ill-omened. An omen is a sign that something bad is going to happen. Is an omen bad? To me, an omen is bad. Let's see. Can omens be good? A good omen? Yeah, it could be. Even before the definition comes up. Yeah, it could be, now that I'm thinking about it. So an omen is like a sign. I heard something. We call them old wives' tales. that if a bird flies past you and you can hear the sound of its wings, that means death is coming. So that's a bad omen. That's an ill omen. Don't say ill omen. Say bad omen. It's a bad omen. Or some people believe that if you're walking and a black cat walks past you, that's very bad luck. That's a bad omen. That's a sign. That's a sign from the universe that something bad is about to happen. I've lost my place. Okay. It was one of 4, which stood back some a little way from the street, 2 being occupied and 2 empty. The latter looked out with 3 tiers of vacant melancholy windows. So there's that word melancholy again, Pachu. The windows look sad for some reason. How could windows look sad? Maybe they're a little bit dirty, like nobody washes them. Maybe there's a torn curtain in the window. Nobody lives there, so it's not taken care of. Which were blank and dreary, save that here and there a to let card. In the UK, they like to use the word let to mean rent. So in North America, it would say for rent. But in the UK, probably it would say to let. Save that here and there was a to let card had developed like a cataract upon the bleared panes. So let's look at cataracts, in case you don't know what that is. Google's latest annoying thing now is it completes my searches even though I don't want it to. So I try to type cataract and it gives me some bizarre thing instead that I don't want. This is a cataract. Cataract. I think a lot of older people sometimes get this, unfortunately. And so he's saying that the to let sign in the window looks like a cataract. A small garden sprinkled over with a scattered eruption of sickly plants separated each of these houses from the street, and as we traversed by a narrow pathway yellowish in color and consisting apparently of a mixture of clay and of gravel, the whole place was very sloppy from the rain which had fallen through the night. Sloppy, that's a good word. Let's see what kind of pictures we get with sloppy. Too bad I've already got my word of the day. Sloppy is sort of like messy. It could be like disorganized, but also it implies dirty, like dirty and disorganized. Messy and disorganized and dirty. You see that? What other things? Here's a sloppy girl. Here's a sloppy man. See, everything is disorganized. Wait a minute. How do I get that? There we go. See the sloppy guy? The whole place was very sloppy from the rain which had fallen through the night. The garden was bounded by a 3-foot brick wall with with a fringe of wood rails upon the top. And against this wall was leaning a stalwart policeman constable, surrounded by a small knot of loafers. To loaf means to be lazy, to do nothing. A loafer is a lazy person, a person just standing around, relaxing, doing nothing. It's a negative word. Loafing is a negative thing. Who craned their necks and strained their ears in the vain hope of catching some glimpse of the proceedings within. So now that the police have come and found a dead body in the house, more police have come. Of course, if you see a house with a lot of police around it and you live there, you're curious. So a lot of the neighbors or people in the neighborhood came to say, "Oh, what's going on?" And Sherlock Holmes is calling them loafers. I had imagined that Sherlock Holmes would at once have hurried into the house and plunged. Remember, plunge means go down quickly. Go into the house quickly. And plunged into a study of the mystery. Nothing appeared to be further from his intention. With an air of nonchalance. So to be nonchalant means to act like you don't care. This is a very serious thing. They're walking into a house where there's a dead body. But Sherlock Holmes doesn't seem to care about that. He just walks in, "Hey, everybody." That's being nonchalant. Acting like you don't care when you probably should be caring. Nothing appeared to be further from his attention. With an air of nonchalance, which under the circumstances seemed to me to border upon affectation. So what Watson is saying is, I think he really does care. It seems like he's acting like he's pretending. That's what affectation is. It means like being insincere, pretending, acting. So he's acting like he doesn't care. It seems fake. It doesn't seem real. With an air of nonchalance which was, under the circumstances, seemed to me to border upon affectation. It seemed fake. He was pretending not to care. He lounged up and down the pavement and gazed vacantly at the ground. So remember, vacant means empty, and gaze also means look. So he's not thinking, he's just... You can't see what he's thinking. He has a vacant face, an empty face, no expression. The sky, the opposite houses, the line of railings. Having finished his scrutiny, if you scrutinize something, you're looking at it very closely. So having looked at it very closely, he proceeded slowly down the path, or rather down the fringe of grass which flanked the path. To flank something, that means to be on the side. Keeping his eyes riveted upon the ground, twice he stopped. And once I saw him smile, and heard him utter an exclamation of satisfaction. There were many marks of footsteps upon the wet, clayey soil. But since the police had been coming and going over it, I was unable to see how my companion could hope to learn anything from it. Still, I had such an extraordinary evidence of the quickness of his perceptive faculties that I had no doubt that he could see a great deal, which was hidden from me. So Watson is describing Sherlock Holmes inspecting the area. And Watson doesn't see anything, But he thinks that inside Sherlock Holmes's head, he probably sees a lot, because based on their previous conversation, he can look at something very normal that nobody else would think was weird or different and get so much information from it. At the door of the house, we were met by a tall, white-faced, flaxen-haired man with a notebook in his hand, who rushed forward and wrung my companion's hands. Wringing someone's hands, this is wringing your hands. So the detective ran over to Sherlock Holmes and grabbed his hands and said, "Oh, I'm so happy you're here." "It is indeed kind of you to come," he said. "I have everything left untouched." "Except that," my friend answered, pointing at the pathway. "If a herd of buffaloes had passed along there, could not be a greater mess, no doubt. However, you had drawn your own conclusions, Gregson, before you permitted this." Let's go back. So the detective says, "I left everything untouched." "Except that," my friend answered, pointing at the pathway. "If a herd of buffaloes had passed along, there could not be a greater mess." I think what he's complaining about is that the detective didn't touch the scene where the dead body is, but he let all the police and detectives walk in and out of the house constantly, and now they've destroyed the evidence leading to the house. "I had so much to do inside the house," the detective said evasively. "My colleague, Mr. Lestrade, is here. I had relied upon him to look after this." Holmes glanced at me and raised his eyebrows sardonically. So Holmes is saying that Lestrade and Gregson are the best detectives in England, but they're stupid. Saying that they're the best doesn't mean anything because all the detectives are horrible. And he was saying, "I'll show you how dumb they are." And now it's happening, and Sherlock Holmes looks at Watson like this. I told you about them. They're stupid." Holmes glanced at me and raised his eyebrows sardonically. "With two such men as yourself, Lestrade, upon the ground, there will not be much for third party to find out," he said. Gregson rubbed his hands in a self-satisfied way. "I think we've done all that can be done," he answered. "It's a queer case. Queer means strange. It's a queer case, and I knew your taste for such things." "You did not come here in a cab?" asked Sherlock Holmes. "No, sir." "Nor Lestrade?" "No, sir." "Then let us go look at that room." With which inconsequent remark, he strode on into the house. To stride, the stride is walking. So don't use stride to mean walk. That would be very weird. But that's what it means. It means walking. He strode on into the house. He walked into the house. Followed by Gregson, whose features expressed his astonishment. A short passage, bare, planked, and dusty, led to the kitchen and offices. 2 doors opened out of it, to the left and to the right. One of these had obviously been closed for many weeks. The other belonged to the dining room, which was the apartment in which the mysterious affair had occurred. Holmes walked in, and I followed him, with that subdued feeling at my heart which the presence of death inspires. So, to the detective in Sherlock Holmes, it's pretty normal that... Uh-oh. Okay. I thought I saw a weird flash on my computer. I thought we got disconnected. It just went... We're fine. Everybody's still there? To Holmes and the detective, This happens all the time. They're used to dead bodies. They don't care. But to Watson, this is very strange, and he feels very serious about walking into this building that has a dead body in it. It was a large, square room looking all larger from the absence of all the furniture. A vulgar, flaring paper adorned the walls. Vulgar means unrefined or crude or bad taste. I think here what they're describing is bad taste. There's a wallpaper on the walls, and Watson, who I think is describing this, doesn't like it. He thinks it's ugly. He thinks it's very bad taste, so he calls it vulgar. Offensive. Vulgar means offensive. A vulgar, flaring wallpaper adorned the walls, but it was blotched in places. Didn't we talk about Well, we talked about splash the other day, and I know we've talked about the word blotch before, but I just want to remind you what it is because it turns out to be a useful word. It's used to describe irregular shapes. So this leaf is green, but it has blotches of brown. Here are examples of blotches. Those are blotches. Just an irregular shape. It's kind of the shape that liquid takes when it lands on something. Is kind of a blotch. I think that's where it comes from. Let me fix my focus. I don't know why. If I move around too much, I become very blurry. And then I have to adjust the settings. Let's see. Okay, I think we're okay now. Or sort of. I have to learn to highlight this or something so I don't lose my place all the time. It's so hard to find my way back. Okay, we're done with that page. Or almost done with it. Okay, it was a large square room, all the larger from the absence of all the furniture. So the room looked larger than it really was because it was empty. A vulgar flaring paper adorned the walls, but it was blotched in places with mildew here and there. Let me show you what mildew is. It's mold, in case you know what mold is, or a type of mold. This is mildew. M-I-L-D-E-W, that's mildew. Great strips had been detached and hung down, exposing the yellow plaster beneath. Opposite the door was a showy fireplace, surmounted by a mantelpiece of imitation white marble. On the corner of this was stuck the stump of a red wax candle. The solitary window was so dirty that the light was hazy and uncertain, giving a dull gray tinge to everything. So the window was so dirty when the light came in, it sort of made the room look extra brown or yellow. That's the tinge to everything, Hold Hold on. Which was intensified by the thick layer of dust which coated the whole apartment. All these details I observed afterwards. At present, my attention was centered upon the single grim, motionless figure which lay stretched upon the boards with vacant, sightless eyes, staring up at the discolored ceiling. It was that of a man of about 43 or 44 years of age, middle-sized, broad shoulders. Broad means wide, wide shoulders, with crisp, curling black hair and short, stubbly beard. Let me show you stubble. That's a good word to have, stubble. I'm very lazy, and then I don't shave for 3 or 4 days sometimes, and then I get stubble. That's stubble. It was that of a man of about 43 or 44 years of age, middle-sized, broad shoulders with crisp, curling black hair and a short, stubbly beard. So he didn't have a big full beard, he just had like a little bit of a beard. He was dressed in a heavy broadcloth frock, coat, and waistcoat, with light-colored trousers, an immaculate collar and cuffs. A top hat, well brushed and trim, was placed upon the floor beside him. His hands were clenched. If your hands are clenched, they're like this, like a fist. My hand is clenched in a fist. So the dead body is laying on the ground, and his hands are like this. And his arms thrown abroad, while his lower limbs were interlocked, as though his death struggle had been a grievous one. The limbs are your arms and your legs. So his lower limbs are his legs, were interlocked, as though the death had been a fight, a struggle, had been a grievous one, it had been a really big fight. On his rigid face, rigid means can't move, doesn't move, not flexible. On his rigid face, there stood an expression of horror, and as it seemed to me, of hatred, such as I had never seen upon human features. This malignant, there we have malignant, mal means bad or evil. Something malignant is something evil. This malignant and terrible contortion. Contortion is how you twist your body. So this is a contortion. This is not a contortion, but this is a contortion. It's like how your body moves around itself. This malignant and terrible contortion, combined with the low forehead, blunt nose, and prognathous jaw. Okay, we have to look up the word prognathous. Having a jaw that projects forward beyond the rest of the face. So if somebody has a jaw that goes like that, like a chin, not the chin, the jaw. This is the jaw. Okay, this is a chin, but this whole thing here is the jaw. That's prognathous. That's a prognathous face, I guess. When the whole jaw is pushed forward. Let's see if we can find No, I want to see a picture. Let's see what prognathous is. I don't think it's too noticeable. Yeah, I guess it is noticeable. You see this woman That's Prognithus. Not that it matters. I just wanted to see a picture. You'll never. I've gone my whole life, and I've never used that word or seen it. I think you only have to see it if it affects you. Uh-oh. Oh boy. Let me reposition this. Here we go. Okay. His hands were clenched and his arms thrown abroad, while his lower limbs were interlocked as though this death struggle had been a grievous one. On his rigid face there stood an expression of horror, and as it seemed to me of hatred, such as I have never seen upon human features. This malignant and terrible contortion, combined with the low forehead, blunt nose, and prognathous jaw, gave the dead man a singularly simious look. Simi is a word. I'm not sure if it's Greek or Latin. It means like monkey, like a monkey. So the angry look and the jaw sticking out made him look like a monkey, or similar to a monkey. Ape-like appearance. So maybe simi means ape, not monkey. Not that anybody cares, but it means looking like a monkey or looking like an ape. Which was increased by his writhing. We've seen writhe a lot. Writhe is the movement of a snake. It's writhing. Writhing, unnatural posture. So he's laying like this, like he was writhing. I've seen death in many forms, but never has it appeared to me in more a fearsome aspect than in that dark, grimy apartment. Grimy means dirty. Which looked out upon the main arteries of suburban London. Lestrade, lean and ferret-like as ever, was standing by the doorway and greeted by my companion and myself. This case will make a stir, sir. Stir, sir. They rhyme. This case will make a stir, sir. You know that stirring means this, right? Like moving. If you have liquid and you do this, you're stirring the liquid. But to cause a stir means to cause a big commotion, a big problem. A lot of excitement. So he's saying this story will make a lot of excitement in town, sir. This case will make a stir, sir, he remarked. It beats anything I've seen, and I'm no chicken. There's no clue? Said Gregson. None at all, chimed in Lestrade. Sherlock Holmes approached the body and, kneeling down, examined it intently. That means with a lot of attention. You're sure that there is no wound? He asked, pointing to numerous gouts and splashes of blood which lay all round. Positive, cried both detectives. Then, of course, this blood belongs to a second individual. Presumably the murderer, if murder has been committed. So they don't know. There's blood on the floor, but there's no injury to the dead body. That's why Sherlock Holmes is saying then the person who did this is injured. The person who put the body there has an injury. It reminds me of the circumstances attendant on the death of Van Jansen. In Utrecht, in the year 34. So that's 1834. Do you remember the case, Gregson? No, sir. Read it up. Read up on something is a phrasal verb. And that phrasal verb means to do research. So he's saying do some research about it. Read up on it. You really should. There's nothing new under the sun. It's all been done before. As he spoke, his nimble fingers, nimble means very quick, very agile, very flexible. His nimble fingers were flying here, there, and everywhere, feeling, pressing, unbuttoning, examining, while his eyes wore the same faraway expression, which I've already remarked upon. So several times Watson has mentioned that Sherlock Holmes has a vacant stare, vacant, empty stare. So he's working very hard with his nimble fingers. His fingers are quick and very flexible. But there's no expression on his face. Kind of scary looking. You don't see any reaction. So swiftly was the examination made that one would hardly have guessed the minuteness. This is not minute. This is not 60 seconds. Minute is 60 seconds. Minute means very, very, very small. That one would hardly have guessed the minuteness with which it was conducted. So every little detail. Finally, he sniffed the dead man's lips and then glanced at the soles of his patent leather boots. "He's not been moved at all?" he asked. "No more than was necessary for the purposes of our examinations." "You can take him to the mortuary now," he said. A mortuary is where they put dead people before the family can have an opportunity to take the body somewhere. A mortuary... What's the difference between a morgue and a mortuary? Because maybe I'm thinking of a morgue. I just want to compare. What is the difference between a morgue and mortuary? And, the word mort, M-O-R-T, means dead. It comes from the same word as murder. Okay, and you can see that word morgue, mortuary. That's how you know this has something to do with dead people. What is the difference between morgue and mortuary? Let's see. Okay. A morgue is a special place, probably in a hospital, where they put the dead bodies. And a mortuary... Okay, a mortuary is a place where a body is prepared for cremation or burial. So the morgue is a place in the hospital where they keep the dead bodies. And a mortuary is where they prepare the dead body to be put into the ground or to be burned. "You can take him to the mortuary now," he said. "There's nothing more here to be learned." Gregson had a stretcher. A stretcher is this. It's like a bed with wheels. Well, this is a modern stretcher. The stretcher that they were using probably looked like... Do they have one? Oh, something like this probably. More like that. Back then, that was a stretcher. You could take him to the mortuary now, he said. There's nothing more to be learned. Gregson had a stretcher and 4 men at hand. At his call, they entered the room, and the stranger was lifted and carried out. As they raised him, a ring tinkled down and rolled across the floor. Lestrade grabbed it up and stared at it with mystified eyes. "There's been a woman here," he cried. "It's a woman's wedding ring." He held it out as he spoke upon the palm of his hand. Wait a minute. He held it out as he spoke. This is why pausing is important sometimes. He held it out as he spoke, upon the palm of his hand. We all gathered round him and gazed at it. There could be no doubt that the circlet of plain gold had once adorned the finger of a bride. This complicates matters," said Gregson. Heaven knows they were complicated enough. "You are sure it doesn't simplify them?" observed Holmes. "There's nothing to be learned by staring at it. What did you find in his pockets?" "We have it all here," said Gregson, pointing to a litter of objects upon the bottom steps of the stairs. "A gold watch, number 97163, by Barrow of London. Gold Albert chain, very heavy, very solid. Gold ring with Masonic device. Gold pin. Bulldog's head with rubies as eyes. Russian leather card case with cards of Enoch J. Drebber of Cleveland, corresponding with the EJD upon the linen. No purse, but loose money to the extent of £7.13. Pocket edition of Boccaccio's Decameron, with the name of Joseph Strangerson upon the flyleaf. 2 letters, one addressed to E.J. Drebber and one to Joseph Strangerson. At what address? American Exchange, Strand, to be left till called for. They both from the Guion Steamship Company, and refer to sailing of their boats from Liverpool. It's clear that the unfortunate man was about to return to New York. Have you made any inquiries as to this man Strangerson? I did it at once, sir, said Gregson. I have had advertisements sent to all the newspapers, and one of my men has gone to the American Exchange, but he has not yet returned. Have you sent to Cleveland? We telegraphed this morning. How did you word your inquiries? We simply detailed the circumstances and said that we should be glad of any information which could help us. You did not ask for particulars? You did not ask for particulars on any point which appeared to you to be crucial? I asked about Strangerson. Nothing else? Is there no circumstance on which this whole case appears to hinge? Will you not telegraph again? I've said all I have to say, said Gregson in an offended voice. Sherlock Holmes chuckled to himself and appeared to be about to make some remark when Lestrade, who had been in the front room while we were holding this conversation in the hall, reappeared upon the scene, rubbing his hands in a pompous and self-satisfied way. Pompous means very proud. Ha! I found it. Mr. Gregson, he said, I have just made a discovery of the highest importance, and one which would have been overlooked had I not been careful examination of the walls. Had I not made a careful examination of the walls. The little man's eyes sparkled as he spoke, and he was evidently in a state of suppressed exultation, and having scored a point against his colleague. Come here, he said, bustling back into the room, the atmosphere of which felt clearer since the removal of its ghastly inmate. Ghastly means horrible. They're just saying, since they removed the dead body. Now stand there. He struck a match and held it up against the wall. Look at that, he said triumphantly. I have remarked that the paper had fallen away in parts. In this particular corner of the room, a large piece had peeled off, leaving a yellow square of coarse plastering. Across this bare space there was scrawled in blood-red letters a single word: Rach. So the paper was falling because, let's see, it might be hard for you to imagine this if you're not familiar too much with wallpaper. If you use wallpaper in your home, after many years or neglect, it will start to fall apart probably. You have to change it or do something different. So if you have like an old house, probably the old house, the walls might look like this because the paper is coming off of the walls. And that's how they describe the dining room. There's wallpaper, but it looks like this. It's falling down. It's falling from the wall. But what seems to have happened is somebody wrote in blood the word Rach. But that was covered. But one of the detectives found it. And now he's very proud of himself. Look what I found. A clue. What do you think of that? Cried the detective with an air of showman, exhibiting his show. This was overlooked because it was in the darkest corner of the room. Oh, actually no, I guess he didn't uncover it. It's just that in that corner of the room, while the dead body was there, nobody bothered to light the room. And after the dead body had been removed, they turned on the lights. So it's not really a big triumph. This was overlooked because it was in the darkest corner of the room, and no one thought of looking there. The murderer has written it with his or her own blood. See this smear? Smear is when... It's a pretty useful word. Oh no. Well, actually, here's a blood smear. It looks like a blood smear. Smear is when something goes like this, right? So, actually, if you put bread on butter, you're smearing the butter. This baby is smearing paint on his face. And this seems to be an example of smeared blood. Pachu said trickle down. Is that word in here, or are you just associating that with the word smear? Trickle is like little drops of water. 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops. So if you have like a trickle of information, it's like 1 little piece of information, 2 little pieces of information. That's what trickle means. So trickle is about releasing little drops of water. But it can be used in other ways. Smear is when you do this with something. So smeared blood is blood, but somebody did this. Maybe with their foot. Maybe they were walking and they smeared the blood. Or they were writing Rach, right? So they had to smear the blood on the wall to write Rach. See this smear where it had trickled down? Oh, there's trickle. So somebody wrote Rach with blood, but then little drops of blood trickled down. Trickled down the wall. That disposes of the idea of suicide anyhow. Why was that corner chosen to write it on? I will tell you. See that candle on the mantelpiece? It was lit at the time, and if it was lit, this corner would be brightest instead of the darkest portion of the wall. So the person says, why did the murderer write Rach in that weird corner? And Sherlock Holmes is saying because the candle that they were using at the time was on the opposite side of the room. So the person who wrote Rach on the wall in blood did it because it was dark and nobody could see. And what does it mean now that you have found it? Asked Gregson in a depreciatory voice. Mean? Why, it means that the writer was going to put that female name Rachel. But disturbed before he or she had time to finish. You mark my words, when this case comes to be cleared up, you will find that a woman named Rachel has something to do with it. It's all very well for you to laugh, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. You may be very smart and clever, but the old hound is the best, when all is said and done. I really beg your pardon, said my companion, who had ruffled the little man's temper by bursting into an explosion of laughter. You certainly have the credit of being the first of us to find this out. So, it's really not a big discovery. That part of the room was dark, and somebody had written something very in large letters in blood, but because it was dark, nobody could see. But when they finally turned on the candle, or they lit the candle and could see, because he was the first, he thought he was an amazing detective for finding it. And now Sherlock Holmes is laughing at him. Pachi is asking about the word hound. The word hound really just means dog, but in English, we like to use it for a particular type of dog. These are hunting dogs, and the job of this type of dog, when I was growing up, we had a dog like that. That's a beagle. Their job is to hunt for animals. So, they don't hunt them, but they find them. So if you have your gun, you want to go animal hunting, this dog will come with you, and he'll find animals for you to hunt. So a hound is very good at finding things. They use these dogs at airports to look for drugs. They use them to look for missing people. And they use hound dogs because that's a special type of dog who's very good at finding things with its nose. So the detective is calling himself an old hound. So he's like the hound. He can find whatever he wants. And he's old. So Sherlock Holmes is making fun of the detective. The detective is very proud because he found this big clue. But it's not really a big clue. Anybody who turned on the light would have seen it. So Sherlock Holmes starts laughing at the detective. You certainly have the credit of being the first of us to find this out. And as you say, it bears every mark of having been written by the other participant in last night's mystery. I have not had the time to examine this room yet, but with your permission, I shall do so now. As he spoke, he whipped a tape measure and a large round magnifying glass from his pocket. With these two implements, I'm just going to show you what a tape measure is. I'm trying to hurry because we still have to practice, and I have to leave by 8. Let's see, tape measure. Pachi is asking about ruffles. Let me show you what a tape measure is. This is a tape measure. Probably Sherlock had something more like this. That would be more of a traditional kind of tape measure. Ruffle, let's see, ruffled shirt. A shirt that has something like this. See what all these shirts have in common? These are ruffles. Ruffles, they kind of stand out. They make things look bigger or fatter in a way. And I always think of this sort of shape when I think of ruffles, or at least a ruffled shirt. So you can get the idea that ruffles means something stands out. Let's see. When a bird gets angry, their feathers stick out. These are called ruffled feathers. So another way to say that you're angry is your feathers are ruffled. So you're like a bird. If you make somebody angry and they're yelling at you, you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruffle your feathers." It's a pretty common expression. So the detective's feathers were ruffled because Sherlock Holmes was laughing at him. So now the detective's feathers are sticking out. He's getting angry and offended. His feathers are ruffled. As he spoke, he whipped a tape measure and a large round magnifying glass from his pocket. With these two implements, he trotted, that means walking. He walked noiselessly about the room, sometimes stopping, occasionally kneeling, and once lying flat on his face. So engrossed means concentrated, completely 100% concentrated. So engrossed was he with his occupation that he appeared to have forgotten our presence, for he chattered away to himself, under his breath. So he's doing things, he's saying, "Oh, look at that, oh," but he's talking to himself under his breath. This is talking out loud. "Oh, and this is talking under your breath. Oh, look at that, that's kind of interesting. Oh." You're not talking to someone, you're talking to yourself. Talking under his breath the whole time, keeping up a running fire of exclamations, groans, whistles, and little cries suggestive of encouragement and hope. As I watched him, I was irresistibly reminded of the pure-blooded, well-trained foxhound as it dashes backwards and forwards through the covert, whining in its eagerness until it comes across a lost scent. So Watson is even comparing Sherlock Holmes to a hound dog. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that. So he's even comparing him to a dog, a foxhound. That would be a dog that hunts foxes. Hound, Pachu, by the way, hound and hunt come from the same word. That's how you can remember it. Hounds are hunting dogs, and hound and hunt are the same word, or almost, or evolved from the same word. As I watched him, I was irresistibly reminded of pure-blooded, well-trained foxhound as it dashing is running, dashes backwards and forwards through the covert, whining in its eagerness until it comes across the lost scent. For 20 minutes or more he continued his researches, measuring with the most exact care the distance between marks which were entirely invisible to me, and occasionally applying his tape to the walls in equally incomprehensible manner. In one place, he gathered up very carefully a little pile of gray... Okay, yeah, we're almost at the end. little pile of gray dust on the floor and packed it away in an envelope. Finally, he examined with his glass the word upon the wall, going over every letter of it with the most minute exactness. Minute, which means very small details. It's not minute, it's not 60 seconds, it's minute, which means small details. This done, he appeared to be satisfied, for he replaced his tape and his glass in his pocket. They say that genius is an infinite capacity for taking pains, he remarked with a smile. It's a very bad definition, but it does apply to detective work. Gregson and Lestrade had watched the maneuvers of their amateur companion with considerable curiosity and some contempt. Contempt means hate. They evidently failed to appreciate the fact which I had begun to realize, that Sherlock Holmes' smallest actions were all directed towards some definite and practical end. "What do you think of it, sir?" they both said. "It would be robbing you of the credit of the case if I was to presume to help you," remarked my friend. So Sherlock Holmes is saying, I can't tell you what I found, because if I did, then you'd already know the answer to the mystery, and then you wouldn't be detectives anymore. I would be doing something bad if I told you the answer. You're doing so well now that it would be a pity for anyone to interfere. So now Sherlock Holmes is torturing them. He's saying, "Oh, no, I don't want to help you. You're the best detectives. You're doing so well now that it would be a pity for anyone to interfere." There was a world of sarcasm in his voice as he spoke. "If you will let me know how your investigations go," he continued, "I shall be happy to give you any help I can. In the meantime, I should like to speak to the constable who found the body. Can you give me his name and address?" Lestrade glanced at his notebook. "John Rance," he said. "He's off duty now. You'll find him at 46 Audley Court, Kennington Park Gate." Holmes took a note of the address. "Come along, Doctor," he said. "We shall go and look him up. I'll tell you one thing which may help you in the case," he continued, turning to the two detectives. "There has been murder done, and the murderer was a man. He was more than 6 feet high, was in the prime of his life. The prime of your life, that could be maybe between 20 and 40, 45. It's done. That means like the best part of their life. Had small feet for his height, wore coarse, square-toed boots, and smoked a Trichinopoly cigar. He came here with his victim in a four-wheeled cab, which was drawn by a horse with 3 old shoes and 1 new one on his off foreleg. In all probability, the murderer had a florid face, and the fingernails of his right hand were remarkably long. There are only a few indications, but they may assist you." Lestrade and Gregson glanced at each other with an incredulous smile. So remember, cred, like credibility, credit, that word cred means believe. So incredulous means not believable. I can't believe it. That's incredulous. That's incredulous. Let's see. "If this man was murdered, how was it done?" asked the former. "Poison," said Sherlock Holmes curtly, and strode off. "One other thing, Lestrade," he added, turning round at the door. "Rache is the German for revenge. So it's Rache. And it's not Rach. I thought it was Rach too, like the first part of the name Rachel. But Sherlock Holmes says it's not Rachel, it's Rache, which is the German word for revenge. So don't lose your time looking for Miss Rachel. With which Parthian shot he walked away, leaving the two rivals open-mouthed behind. And that is the end of chapter 3 of Sherlock Holmes, A Study in Scarlet. But do not go away, because now we're going to do the fun part. We're going to practice some of the vocabulary that we talked about today. And let's see, who have we got today? We've got Alex and Pachu have volunteered. So we're going to bring in Alex and Pachu, and we're going to practice some of the vocabulary words that we just talked about. And we're going to focus on pronunciation, intonation, and accentuation. And this is going to improve your accent. So we'll practice interesting vocabulary, but this is really accent work that we're doing. Okay, now I have to take a short break because I have to get the definitions and the exercise ready for the words that we just took. And then when I return in about 3 minutes, Pachu and Alex will join us and we'll practice together for about an hour. So don't go away. This is live speaking practice. I'll be right back. Whoops, that's not the right one. Where's my be right back? They're the same color schemes. All right, I'm back. So now we're going to go into Discord and we're going to bring in Pachu and Alex, and we're going to practice some of the vocabulary words, focusing on, as I said, intonation, accentuation, and pronunciation. So let's open up Discord. First, I better turn off my music. All right. Let's see. First, I want to bring up... I've got too many windows open. I lost my window. Where is it? Oh no. All right, it doesn't matter. We'll open up a new one. I don't want to waste any more time with this. Okay, so we'll go to Discord and we'll find Alex and Pachu. If I can remember how to do this. Let's see. Hello? Well, so far nobody hears me. Oh, what's this I just opened? Well, it looks like Pachu's talking, but I don't hear anybody. Oh no. I'm going to close this and open it again because I think let's see. Try that again. Something seems to have changed. Alex says he can hear me. I can't hear them. What's going on now? Have they changed something? Because this looks different. I've never seen this screen before. And now I don't hear anybody. Hello? I can see you lighting up and talking, but I don't hear you. Let me see. Can you hear each other? Pachu and Alex, do you hear each other talking? It's just me? All right. I'm going to put... And now what? Let's see. Did I... Voice... Your volumes are okay. I see you. See, I'm playing sounds and I don't hear the sounds. Somehow my audio must be off here. Oh no. What is this? Well, I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. It's just me. Let me. Testing. I'm looking at my microphone. Input, output. Let's see if I. There must be something. I haven't changed my settings. I haven't done anything to my settings, but for some reason it says voice connected. Testing. Hello. I don't know. Something is wrong. Patch is saying start Discord. I did that, but I'll try it again. I'll try to start Discord again. So I'm quitting and I'll come back. Hello? See, I can see that you're talking. I can see the green circle. But there's no audio. Threads. Let's see. Are there any settings? Oh, this is bad. Well, I'm sorry, guys. I don't think we're going to be able to do it today. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with this. It's not good for me to keep this live stream up when I can't figure out what's going on. I've got people coming here thinking, what is this? I don't know what to do. Let's see. What is this? Oh, user settings. Okay, wait. Let me see the audio here. I think maybe I found. But I haven't changed anything. That's a strange thing. Profile. Voice and video. Testing. Let's check this. Mic issues, start a test. Oh, hello? Speak. Can Bachu, Alex, can you hear me? Hello? No, I don't know what to do. Okay, maybe I have to restart my computer or something, but I guess we have to finish here for today because I don't know how long it's going to take to figure out what's wrong. And maybe it's something very simple that I don't know. Maybe I just have to restart my computer, but I don't want to waste your time today. So I'm very sorry. I don't know what's wrong. I'll try to figure it out. I'll try to fix it. Uh, and I will, maybe I'll be back on Discord later to see if anybody wants to talk. We'll see if we can. This is my screen is coming weird. Oh, yeah, Pacha says age restriction. Yeah, I don't know. I was messing with the settings. I'll change it back in a minute. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. I'll try to update you later. We'll see what's going on. Hopefully, all I need to do is restart my computer. But I guess we better finish here. Sorry about that. Well, we'll practice later. Actually, I've been talking to. My microphone is off. You can't hear me? You don't hear now you don't hear me either? Oh wait. It's Hello? You can hear me now, right? Um I've been talking to Sarah and I guess maybe in the future, very soon, if she agrees, we're going to try an interesting IELTS style uh, thing. If Discord ever works again. If I can get it to work again. So that should be pretty interesting. I think if we can, I'll try to arrange that one at night. It depends on her schedule because she's going to participate in that one. But that's coming soon. So we'll finish here. I'll try to fix whatever is wrong, and I hope that tomorrow morning we'll try to do this again tomorrow. Okay, sorry about that, but I guess we better finish. All right, have a good day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments and your questions, and I'll be back tomorrow if everything is okay. Bye bye.